For those that don't know me, my name is Dan Peterson. I'm a 34-year-old man living in Calgary, Alberta, with cerebral palsy. I'm, in and amongst other things, a disability advocate. And the purpose of this video is to review my first experience on our local accessible transit system, Calgary Transit Access, since the beginning of COVID-19. So last night, I just met up with some friends for some wings, and I had booked the trip online on Wednesday with no problem. I know that there was some confusion locally as to whether or not they had shut down the online booking system, but I, in this case, had no problem. I had made the booking to drop me off at the venue that I was going to at 7 p.m. and had no problem booking for them to pick me up at the house at 6:15, and had suspected that, given that they had put a rule in place that no more than two people were to be on a bus with a driver at a time, that that would be the case, and that there would either be someone else on board already when I got on, or that we would be picking someone up along the way, given that it was to be a 45-minute trip, but the venue was about 20 minutes away. And much to my surprise, when I got the automated phone call that my vehicle was to arrive within 5 to 8 minutes, which is usually what they do with those automated calls, I had decided to get ready and get into my manual wheelchair, which I chose to take as opposed to the power chair, because I had elected to have a friend that I was meeting drop me off at home rather than taking the return trip and being stuck at the venue. So I canceled the return trip with Access and took the manual wheelchair as opposed to the power chair. And so when I got the automated phone call, much to my surprise, the vehicle was already actually outside waiting for me, and the driver knocked on the door, and because he had thought that I was going to be in the power chair, he let me know that he was there to pick me up and ready and willing, but he left the back door area and chose to head out to his bus and lower the ramp, thinking that I would be taking my power chair, and not knowing that I had elected to not do so. So at that point, which was around 10 after 6, which was a little early, but I'd rather them early than late, obviously. And my mom actually had to wheel me out to the vehicle because of the simple misunderstanding, which is no one's fault. But when I left the house, I was surprised to find out that even though we were outside, which I guess is, in the opinion of health experts, is safe, the driver, while outside, was not wearing a mask. And so when I got to the vehicle, he got behind me and started to load the wheelchair and myself, and put us on the lift okay, and got me into the bus okay. And again, at that point, was still not wearing a mask, which I personally don't have a problem with, but I suspect some will, which is why I'm bringing it up. Um, and So he put the brakes on the wheelchair and then went around to the front of the bus, as is standard procedure, opened the door, and because he had to be in front of me within close proximity to tie down the front of the wheelchair, at that point he did elect and choose to wear a mask, which I feel is the safest thing, especially when you're not outside and you are in close quarters with someone. So, for those that were concerned as to whether or not that was going to happen on your local accessible transit, I can assure you that in this case, and most cases, but in this case, the driver was a contractor from Southland Transportation. I can assure you that he did, in fact, wear a mask when he had to get close to me in a front facing manner where potential transmissions of infections could happen. Um, he very safely and calmly just tied down the wheelchair and made sure that I was not going anywhere and that it was safe to drive away, as would have been the standard prior to COVID. And then I asked, "Well, where is your other pickup?" Because it's scheduled as though it's a 45-minute trip, and he said, "Well, actually, I'm dropping you off directly." At which point, I had to message the friends that I was waiting on and say, "Look, I'm going to be early," which worked out fantastic because they were actually just pulling into the venue as I was. But just, I guess, be aware that because their numbers are down with access, their ridership is still very minimal as comparison to prior to the pandemic. I would suggest that plan to be early to places rather than on time, because for them to schedule things is not as fluid as it was prior. But in terms of those that have concerns of safety, I would like to assure you that based on this experience, there should be no concern, and everything was done with extra precautions and the necessary precautions. In addition, I would like to state that the entire time I was on the vehicle, by my personal choice, I also chose to wear a mask, but at present that is not a current requirement for passengers on Calgary Transit Access. And I understand that there are some that are either not going to be able to physically wear a mask or are going to have anxiety issues around doing so because they do hamper your breathing slightly. So I would say my personal recommendation would be, when you can, if you're out, you should. But if you choose not to, then that's understandable as well. I just thought I would do this quick video to potentially alleviate some concerns and kind of spread the word that as things are starting to reopen here in Alberta, I would love to see nothing more than people with disabilities be able to return to somewhat normalcy. And the only way I could figure out to do that was to attempt to do so myself and put it out there that my experience was good. and my experience was exceptionally safe, and that accessible transit drivers need to be commended at this point in time for their commitment and their safety precautions. So I hope this video benefits someone, and look forward to getting some feedback. All right. Take care, everyone, and be safe.